Hello, Hopewell. This is Mr. Steinberg, and this is our answer key for the assignment for today. Remember, every point on the unit circle, we can draw a right triangle that's pictured here. The horizontal side length is the value of x, and the vertical side length is the value of y. Always our reference angle is our angle of reference for what's opposite and what's adjacent. The sine in a unit circle is opposite over hypotenuse, which is y divided by 1, or just y. A cosecant would be its reciprocal, or 1 divided by y. The reciprocal, if it is originally a fraction, is just flipping it over. The cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, or just x. And the secant is its reciprocal, 1 over x. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so y divided by x. And its reciprocal is cotangent, x divided by y. What we're going to do is try to use our paper plate, our fingers, and evaluate all of these. Pi divided by 4 is the angle, which we're going to feed into the sine ratio. Pi is 180 divided by 4 is 45 degrees. 0, 30, 45. Fold down my middle finger. Root 2, root 2. This corresponds to the point square root of 2 divided by 2, square root of 2 divided by 2. The sine value is the value of y. Our first answer is root 2 over 2. 5 pi over 6. Pi is 180 divided by 6 is 30. 30 times 5 is 150. Think about the unit circle. 150 degrees terminates in second quadrant with a 30-degree reference angle. My 30-degree reference angle. This corresponds to the point square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. Because I'm in second quadrant, just remember your x-coordinate should be negative. The cosine of this angle is the x-coordinate, so our answer is negative square root of 3 over 2. Pi over 3 is 180 degrees divided by 3, or 60. 60 times 5 is 300. Rotate an angle 300 degrees around, we end up in quadrant 4. 60 degrees is my reference angle. 0, 30, 45, 60. Fold down the index finger. The coordinates are 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. Remember, in fourth quadrant, the x is positive, but the y is negative. For tangent, we want to take the y-coordinate and divide it by the x. What is the square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2? Negative square root of 3 divided by 2 divided by 1/2, if I keep change and flip, becomes negative square root of 3. So negative square root of 3 is our answer. 210 degrees ends up in quadrant 3, where both x and y coordinate are negative. 30-degree reference angle, 0, 30. Square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. And we said both coordinates are negative in the third quadrant. The cosine is the x-coordinate, or the value of x, so negative square root of 3 divided by 2. Next row, the sine of 300 degrees. Ends in this quadrant, quadrant 4. 300 degrees has a reference angle of 60. 0, 30, 45, 60. This corresponds to the point 1/2 root 3 over 2. In the fourth quadrant, the y-coordinate is negative and the x-coordinate is positive. The sine value is the value of the y-coordinate. Negative square root of 3 divided by 2. 330 degrees has a reference angle of 30. This corresponds to the point square root of 3 and negative 1/2. In fourth quadrant, the y-coordinate is negative. Tangent is y divided by x. What's negative? 1/2. If I divide it by root 3 over 2, I can also multiply by 2 over root 3. Let's cancel. Now I cannot leave my answer as 1 over square root of 3 because it's not rationalized. Rationalize this denominator. Negative square root of 3 divided by 3. This is our answer. Sine of 3 pi over 4. Pi is 180 divided by 4 is 45. 3 45s is 135 degrees. 135 degrees is in quadrant 2, where the x-coordinate is negative and the y-coordinate is positive. The sine, we're going to take the y-coordinate, is root 2 over 2. Next, 240 degrees. 240 degrees has a reference angle of 60 in the third quadrant. Reference angle 60 in the third quadrant. Cosine is the x value of that point. So negative 1/2 is our solution. Here are our bottom questions. 8 pi divided by 3 8 pi divided by 3. Pi divided by 3 is 180, divided by 3 is 60. 60 times 8 is 480 degrees. When I go all around the unit circle, that's 360, 450. 480 gives me a reference angle in second quadrant of 60 degrees. The x-coordinate is negative. The y-coordinate is positive. The sine corresponds to the y-coordinate. Our solution is positive, square root 3 over 2. Now 420 degrees, one full revolution. 60 degrees in the first quadrant is its reference angle. Same ordered pair except for the coordinates are both positive. The cosine represents the x-coordinate of 1/2. Tangent of pi radians. Pi radians is 180 degrees. That corresponds to the point -1, 0. The tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, or the y divided by the x. 0 divided by -1 equals 0, so 0 is our ratio. Cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine of an angle. So 330 degrees rotates to quadrant 4 with a 30-degree reference angle. In quadrant 4, the x-coordinate is positive and the y-coordinate is negative. The sine is and would correspond to -1/2. What is the reciprocal of -1 over 2? The answer is -2 over 1. -2 represents the cosecant of 330 degrees. Pi divided by 2 is 90 degrees. What's 9 times 90? That's 810 degrees. So going around the circle 2 full times gets me to 720. One more quarter, or one more quadrant, would be 810. That corresponds to the point 0, 1. The secant is the reciprocal of the cosine of theta. The cosine is x-coordinate. What is the reciprocal of 0? The answer is undefined. 0 has no reciprocal. Next, 135 degrees. 135 degrees occurs in the second quadrant. Cotangent is the reciprocal of the tangent of theta. In this quadrant, the reference angle would be 45. The x-coordinate is negative, the y-coordinate is positive. Normally we do the y divided by the x for tangent. Here we're going to do the x divided by the y for cotangent. So -√2 over 2 divided by +√2 over 2. Anytime you divide a number by its opposite, it gives you -1. -1 is the cotangent of 135 degrees. -5 pi is radians going clockwise. -5 pi. 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4, 5 pi. -5 pi terminates at the point -1, 0. The cotangent would be the x-coordinate divided by the y-coordinate. What is -1 over 0? That ratio is undefined. Number 16, 540 degrees. 540 degrees ends up 360, 450, 540. Also at the point -1, 0. The cosecant is the reciprocal of the y-coordinate. There is no reciprocal of the value of 0. This is the reciprocal of sine. Bottom row. Secant of 270 degrees, -270, -90, -180, -270 is the point 0, 1. The secant is the reciprocal of the cosine. The cosine value is our x. This is again undefined. The tangent of -210 degrees. -210 degrees ends up in quadrant 2 with a reference angle of 30. Since we're in quadrant 2, the x-coordinate is negative and our y-coordinate is positive. The tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, 1/2 divided by -√3 over 2. So I'll do 1/2 times -2 over √3. Simplify this, I get -1 over √3. Rationalize your denominator. -√3 over 3 is our answer. -20 pi, -1 pi, -2 pi, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. Our ending value, our point will terminate at the point 1, 0. The cosine of this would be the x-coordinate of 1. Last one, 13 pi divided by 4. Pi divided by 4 is 45 degrees. That makes 1345 degrees. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 pi over 4 wraps around and ends in the third quadrant. 45-degree reference angle. Both the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate are negative in this quadrant. The sine value is negative root 2 over 2. I almost got under 10 minutes. Here you go. There's your video. This is your answer key. Let me know if you have any questions.